Part 1. The trial begins 1100 words in the heart of the galaxy. Far away from any single planet, there floated a giant space structure known as the Galactic Tribunal. It wasn't just any building, it was the most important court in the galaxy. Built around a dying star, it had existed for thousands of years. Some even said it had been there before. Some of the older species had discovered space travel. This was where the powerful alien races came together to make big decisions. The tribunal judged entire planets, species, and even wars. It didn't matter how big or small your planet was. If the tribunal called you, you had no choice but to appear. On this day, the tribunal was filled with energy, buzzing with excitement. News had spread quickly. A human was going to stand trial. And not just any human, the human race as a whole was being judged. The aliens sitting in the grand chamber were from every corner of the galaxy. Their shapes were strange and different. Some looked like insects, others had fur. Some glowed with light, and others had no bodies at all, just floating energy. They were leaders, judges, and officials. Many of them belonged to ancient empires. That had been part of the tribunal for generations. At the center of this enormous court, on a glowing white platform, stood a single figure, Ambassador Elias Monroe. He was a tall man in his 50s, with a clean black suit, silver hair, and calm, steady eyes. He had no bodyguards, no army behind him, no weapons, just himself, alone. But he didn't look afraid. He looked confident. Around him, the alien audience was filled with noise and laughter. They were laughing at him. To most of the tribunal members, humans were a joke. They were newcomers to space. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel a few hundred years ago, compared to some species that had lived among the stars for over 10,000 years. Humans were babies, but it wasn't just about age. The aliens saw humans as dangerous. In just a short time, humans had spread to dozens of planets, built powerful ships, and developed strange weapons no one else understood. They didn't follow all the rules. They acted on their own, made their own paths, and refused to always listen to the old empires. This worried many of the older species. And so, the tribunal had called a trial. The charge? Humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to grow. Some believed humans should be forced to shut down their space fleets. Others wanted Earth isolated, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Few even suggested that Earth be destroyed before humans caused a galactic war. And now, the human representative was standing before them. Ambassador Elias Monroe looked up toward the high seats where the leaders of the tribunal sat. The most powerful of them all was High Arbiter Zelthurin, a massive creature from the Vrax Dominion. His body looked like it was made of black oil and stone, with a voice like thunder. He had ruled the tribunal for over 600 years. Zelthurin leaned forward. His voice echoed through the chamber. Humans, you spread across the stars like a disease. You colonize planets without permission. You build forbidden technologies. You ignore the rules of the Concord. And now, you think you have the right to speak in this sacred court? The laughter from the aliens grew louder. Some hissed. One Zarian delegate, a glowing jelly-like being, spat a ball of liquid on the floor in disgust. Another delegate shouted, "Why does this savage think he belongs here? Their kind still eats meat." Elias didn't flinch. He stood tall, hands behind his back, calm, quiet. He looked from one alien to the next, showing no anger, no fear. Then he slowly lifted a hand to his neck and tapped a small device hidden beneath his collar. It was a translator chip, allowing everyone in the tribunal to understand his words in their own language. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. "May I speak now?" The aliens didn't stop laughing immediately. Some were still chuckling, others sneered or made rude gestures, but a few had gone quiet. Something about Ilias's tone, calm, serious, respectful, was unusual. Most species would beg or scream when standing in front of the tribunal. But Elias looked like he was waiting patiently to be heard, not afraid of what came next. The High Arbiter raised a hand, and the noise began to die down. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Too many aliens watching. This trial was just a show. They thought the human would beg for mercy, or offer to give up Earth's weapons, or promise to follow the rules. They thought he would apologize. But what they didn't know was this: Elias Monroe didn't come to beg. He came to deliver a message. He had served Earth for over 30 years. He had seen wars, helped build peace, and had stood face to face with alien generals during times of crisis. He had survived battles and betrayals. He had witnessed firsthand what happened when humans were pushed too far. He knew what was coming next, and so did Earth. The tribunal thought this was a trial. But for Elias, this was something more. This was history. And while the aliens laughed now, deep down some of them had begun to wonder, what happens when a human finally speaks back? Part 2. The human speaks 1,100 words after the laughter in the tribunal chamber slowly faded. Even after being mocked, insulted, and called a savage, he showed no anger, no fear. He simply stood tall and looked around the room. These aliens didn't understand what kind of person they had brought before them. Elias was not just a diplomat. He was someone who had represented Earth in dozens of high-level negotiations. He had seen war, peace, betrayal, and hope. He knew exactly how these species saw humanity as a young permission to survive. He took one step forward and began to speak through the translator in a strong, clear voice. "You brought humanity here to answer for our crimes," he said. "You call us dangerous. You say we're unpredictable." He paused. Then slowly and carefully, he looked around at the sea of alien faces watching him. Some stared at him with amusement, some with confusion, but a few had started to grow quiet and serious. The entire room fell silent. Elias continued, "You fear that we are not like you. You fear that we don't ask for permission to survive. That when we are pushed to the edge, we don't surrender. We evolve. We adapt. We endure. And we win." These weren't just empty words. They were backed by history, by Earth's long struggle to survive, not just in the galaxy. Others frowned. Elias looked directly at one of them, a delegate from the Zarian swarm. Years ago, the Zarians had tried to invade Earth. They had expected a short and easy victory. Instead, they were crushed by clever tactics and human resistance. Elias raised his voice slightly, but it remained calm and steady. "You mock us for our weapons, but you forget why we built them. Every empire in this chamber has tried to conquer us or control us. Every time, you failed. Not because we had more ships, not because we had stronger soldiers, but because we had something none of you understand: willpower." The quiet murmur began to spread through the hall. "You fear us, not because of what we've done, but because of what we could do." The sentence hit hard. It was true. Humans had advanced faster than almost any other species. Their growth in space had been fast, and their technology was evolving in strange, unpredictable ways. They were not bound by tradition or fear, and that made them dangerous. Some of the alien leaders were now visibly uncomfortable. You see our curiosity and call it chaos. You see our growth and call it aggression. From the knowledge that one day when you look up at the stars, you might see our banners flying above your worlds. Gasps filled the tribunal chamber. No one had ever dared speak to the tribunal like this before. Most diplomats came in begging for forgiveness or trying to make deals. But Elias wasn't offering anything. He wasn't asking for peace. He was telling them the truth. He looked straight at the High Arbiter Zelthurin, the one who had mocked him earlier, and continued, "You don't want justice. You want Earth to kneel, to become another quiet planet that follows your ancient rules. But we've never been good at kneeling." The High Arbiter tried to interrupt, but Elias raised his hand and spoke louder. "You call this a court of justice? But this is not justice. Humanity does not kneel to fear. We do not stop because others are scared of what we might become. We are becoming more, every day." The room was now filled with stunned silence. Some delegates were speechless. Others looked thoughtful, even afraid. Elias had turned the entire trial upside down. Instead of defending Earth, he had turned the spotlight on them and their fear, their bias, and their fear of change, and deep inside, many of them knew he was right. For centuries, the oldest empires in the galaxy had controlled everything. They had created the rules, decided what was allowed and what wasn't. But humans didn't follow the same path. They challenged old ideas. They found new ways to survive and win. And most frightening of all, they weren't afraid to face impossible odds. Elias looked up, his eyes hard and clear. You called us here expecting weakness. You expected us to beg for mercy. But we are not weak. We do not beg. We're humanity. He stepped back and ended with one final statement. If you want war, then declare it. But do not pretend this is justice. The tribunal chamber remained completely silent. No one laughed now. This part marks the turning point in the story. The humans were brought to the tribunal to be judged. But instead, Elias turned the trial into a message of strength and defiance. Empires. They adapted, pushed forward, and overcame every challenge when the galaxy tried to stop them. Elias wasn't there to ask for peace. That truth had shaken the entire tribunal. The aliens no longer looked amused. For the first time, they looked nervous. Part 3. History Rewritten 1100 Words. The Great Galactic Tribunal Chamber, which had been filled with mocking laughter just moments ago, now sat in complete silence. No one dared to interrupt. No one dared to laugh. Ambassador Elias Monroe, the human representative, had just spoken the truth that no one else in the galaxy wanted to admit. Humanity was not weak, not broken, and definitely not afraid.
Now, the powerful species of the galaxy were beginning to remember. They were remembering everything, for too long. Many alien civilizations had convinced themselves that humans were just lucky, just loud, or just foolish enough to survive by chance.
But now, faced with Ilias's words, they began reviewing real facts. They thought about the wars they had fought against humans and lost. One by one, the tribunal members recalled Earth's long list of victories that weren't supposed to happen, the failed invasions many years ago. The Vraxian Dominion, the same race as the High Arbiter, had launched a massive invasion on Earth. They were one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy. They had crushed dozens of planets before. Their fleets were enormous. Their soldiers were genetically engineered to destroy. But when they reached Earth, something unexpected happened. The humans didn't surrender. They didn't panic. Instead, they outsmarted the invaders. Using clever tactics, guerrilla warfare, and unpredictable strategies, the humans managed to cripple the Vraxian fleet. Despite being outnumbered, they hit where it hurt most. Supply lines, communication hubs, energy systems. Humans targeted everything the Vraxians depended on. In just a few weeks, the once proud Vraxian armada limped away in defeat. It was one of the first times in history that the Vraxians had ever lost a war. They never forgot it. The Zarian Swarm and the Lazarus Protocol. Next, the tribunal members remembered the Zarian Swarm. This alien species fought like insects. They sent billions of warriors at once, overrunning planets like a living storm. When they attacked Earth, they believed they could win by sheer numbers. And for a time, it seemed like they might. But then humanity activated something the galaxy had never seen before: the Lazarus Protocol. This top-secret technology brought fallen soldiers back to life, not through magic, but through a combination of digital memory storage, artificial bodies, and neural backups. The moment a soldier died, their brain data was uploaded, transferred, placed into a new cloned body. Thousands of fallen soldiers returned to the battlefield the same day they died. The Zarian Swarm was overwhelmed, not by numbers, but by the realization that humans refused to stay dead. The swarm was forced to retreat. Their queens issued an emergency command: do not engage humanity again. The silent war with the Telleri Syndicate. The Telleri Syndicate was a secretive, powerful race that controlled entire systems through data, hacking, and mind control networks. They didn't use armies. They used silence and shadows to destroy civilizations from within. They tried the same thing on Earth. They infiltrated human networks, planting viruses and sending false signals. They shut down satellites, controlled systems, and blackmailed human leaders. But within hours, every Telari signal went dark. Human cyber warfare teams had traced, tracked, and counterhacked every single Talari attack. Not only did Earth regain control, but they silenced the entire Talari datanet. The Syndicate lost all access to their systems, and to this day, it never recovered. The Talari Syndicate never spoke. Publicly again, some said their leaders were still trapped in their own digital prisons built by humans. The terrifying ship. Over Saturnand, then came the memory that many in the Tribunal feared the most. A few decades ago, humans had revealed a massive space vessel during a peaceful fleet demonstration near Saturn. The ship didn't broadcast its name, purpose, or weapons. It simply hovered in orbit, casting a shadow over the planet's rings. It was built using both alien and human technology, unlike anything seen before. It didn't move using thrusters. It didn't send out signals. It just watched. No species ever learned how it was built, how it flew, or what it could do. They didn't have to. The message was clear. This is what humans build when they're preparing for something big. The ship had no name. But in secret tribunal records, it was referred to as the Ghost of Saturn, and everyone feared it. Back to the present now. Sitting in the tribunal chamber, the alien leaders finally connected Ilias's words to their memories. You mock us for our weapons, but forget who forced us to build them. You fear us not because of what we've done, but what we might do. These weren't just powerful words, they were warnings backed by history. High Arbiter Zelthurin tried to regain control of the room. His voice thundered once again. This is not a place for threats. The tribunal is a court of law. But Elias replied sharply, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Then why does it feel like a trap? Zelthurin hesitated. And Elias stepped forward again. You dragged us here under the name of justice, but it was never about justice. You never intended to listen. You called this trial to make an example of Earth, to punish us for growing too fast, to remind us that you are still in control. He stared directly at the High Arbiter. But you are not. Another wave of silence rolled across the chamber. The words settled deep into every mind. Elias had just done something that no one in the galaxy had dared to do. He challenged the tribunal itself. He had pointed out the truth that the powerful alien empires were no longer the center of the galaxy, that a new force was rising, that humanity was no longer a visitor among the stars. They were becoming a leader. Elias looked out at the audience one more time and said, You wanted a trial? You got the truth instead. In that moment, everything changed. The tribunal leaders, who once laughed, now sat silently, wondering what Earth would do next. The words spoken by a single human had shaken the most powerful court in the galaxy, because Elias didn't just speak for himself. He spoke for all of humanity, and for the future they were building, no matter who tried to stop them. Nervous. Part 4. The vote that never came 1,100 words after Ambassador Elias Monroe finished speaking. The massive courtroom of the Galactic Tribunal was filled with a deep, heavy silence. No one laughed now. No one made jokes. The alien leaders who had mocked humans only minutes ago now sat frozen in their seats. Everyone had expected the human to beg for mercy or ask for peace. Instead, Elias had given them something far more powerful, the truth, and it had shaken the entire tribunal. This was the moment they had all prepared for, the moment when the tribunal would vote. A vote that would decide humanity's fate. The options were simple. Ban humans from expanding into space. Force them to give up their dangerous technologies. Cut Earth off from all interstellar travel, or possibly accept humans as equals. But none of that happened, because just as the tribunal was about to begin the voting process, something unexpected happened. The sky darkens high above the tribunal building, which floated in space near a dying star. Sensors started to go off. Lights blinked on every screen. Alarms flashed silently in the corners of the hall. A communication officer ran into the room and whispered something urgently into one of the judge's ears. The tribunal paused. A giant holographic screen came to life above the chamber, and there it was floating silently in orbit above the tribunal. A ship, but not just any ship. Earth's flagship, the SS Veritasits. Name appeared in glowing letters on the screen. SS Veritas. In Latin. Veritas means truth. The Veritas was unlike any ship the galaxy had seen. It had no visible engines. It didn't send any signals. It didn't charge its weapons. It just hovered silently, watching over the tribunal like a silent judge of its own. Its design was terrifying in its simplicity's sleek black armor, glowing blue edges, and strange patterns that looked almost alive. The ship was massive, larger than most space stations. Its size alone caused panic among some of the tribunal members. More importantly, the Veritas wasn't even supposed to exist. Years ago, the Galactic Concord, the group of species who made the laws of space, had banned the creation of hybrid warships. These were ships made using both alien and human technology. They were too powerful, too unpredictable, too dangerous, and yet here one was, and it belonged to Earth. No words, no threats, just presence. The Veritas didn't broadcast a message. It didn't aim weapons. It didn't say anything at all. But its very presence spoke louder than words. It told the tribunal, "We are here, we're watching, and we are ready." The alien delegates stared up at the screen in shock. Some began arguing. Few demanded that Earth explain itself. "This is an act of intimidation," a Tharn diplomat shouted. "This is proof they are planning war," cried another. But others, especially the older and wiser ones, remained silent, because they understood what this really was. This wasn't a threat, it was a reminder. Elias Monroe had told them that Earth would not kneel, that humans didn't come to beg, but to speak the truth. The Veritas was proof that he had meant every word. The humans had sent their flagship not to attack, not to destroy, but to show that they were not afraid. And that made the aliens even more nervous. A vote abandoned the tribunal was supposed to vote after hearing both sides, but now no one wanted to speak. The High Arbiter Zelthorin looked down at Elias Monroe. His face, usually calm and filled with pride, was now cold and uncertain. He could have ordered a vote anyway. He could have declared humanity guilty. But even he wasn't ready to make that decision now, not with the Veritas floating above his courtroom. What if Earth had more of those ships? What if this was just one piece of a larger fleet? What if attacking Earth meant starting a war that the galaxy wasn't ready for? And worst of all, what if they lost? So, instead of voting, the tribunal quietly disbanded the session. There was no verdict, no punishment, no ruling, just silence. And that silence said everything, Elias. Walks Free Ambassador Elias Monroe stood quietly on the center platform. No guards came to take him. No sentence was read out. No one told him to leave so. He simply turned and walked out of the chamber alone, proud and undefeated. He passed by alien leaders who just hours earlier had called him a savage. Now, none of them could meet his eyes. He didn't smirk or boast. But before leaving, he stopped at the door, turned back, and said one final thing. One last truth for you all. Humanity doesn't want your throne. We want the stars just like you once did, before fear made you small. Then he left, and the doors closed behind him. The reaction across the galaxy news of what happened at the tribunal spread fast, within hours. It reached every major planet and outpost in the galaxy. People everywhere, alien and human alike, heard about the ship called Veritas, the human who made the tribunal go silent. Some alien leaders called it a trick, others called it a threat, but most called it what it really was, a warning. From that day forward, every military and political leader in the galaxy had one clear rule written into their private orders. Do not provoke humanity. No one wanted to risk it, because humans were different. They didn't follow old rules. They didn't think like the rest of the galaxy. They weren't afraid to challenge giants. And most importantly, they always came prepared. With the tribunal. The tribunal had hoped to humiliate Earth, to control it, or maybe even isolate it. Instead, they had shown the entire galaxy something else entirely. That humanity had grown, that Earth had power, that humans would no longer be treated like the newcomers or the underdogs. And even without saying a word, The SS Veritas had spoken more. Loudly than 1,000 speeches, it said, "We are here, arising, and will not be stopped." Part 5. The Verdict of Silence, 1100 words. The great hall of the Galactic Tribunal, once filled with laughter and judgment, had fallen into a silence so deep that even the low hum of machinery seemed to stop. There had been no vote. There had been no final decision. Instead, the most powerful court in the galaxy had done something it almost never did. It ended the trial without a verdict. The tribunal, the same institution that had passed judgment on empires, destroyed rebellions, and banished entire planets, had been brought to silence by one human and one ship. Elias Monroe, Earth's ambassador, had spoken. And after his speech, the humans had shown their strength without firing a single shot. The tribunal had called Earth to be judged. But it was the tribunal itself that had been tested and found lacking. No one spoke of war again after Elias walked out of the courtroom. The alien leaders remained seated in shock. Some tried to recover and speak up, but their voices were weak. Their arguments felt small. No one laughed anymore. No one shouted about savage humans or Earth's crimes. Everyone in that chamber now understood something clearly. Humanity was no longer a minor species. They had arrived at the galactic stage with power, with confidence, and with the boldness that made the older species uneasy. But more importantly, they had arrived with proof. The SS Veritas, Earth's silent and powerful flagship, still hovered. Above the tribunal station, it didn't need to fire weapons. Its very presence was enough to stop the most important trial in the galaxy. For many alien leaders, that image would never leave their minds. A single ship, quiet and still, speaking. Volumes without saying a word. Elias's final words echoed before leaving. Elias had turned and said something that would be remembered forever. Humanity doesn't want your throne. You want the stars just like you once did, before fear made you small. A threat. It wasn't a warning. It was simply the truth. And that truth hit harder than any weapon. The aliens who once ruled the stars had become obsessed with control. It stopped exploring, stopped growing, and instead built rules and laws to maintain power. Their fear of change had made them weak. But humanity didn't come to the galaxy to take orders. It came to discover, to learn, to push forward even if the rest of the galaxy wasn't ready for it. Elias's words reminded everyone of something they had forgotten. The stars belong to the bold. A new galactic rule after that day, something changed across the galaxy. There was no official announcement. No law was passed. But in secret meetings, quiet conversations, and classified documents, a simple guideline appeared: do not provoke Earth. Whether written into military orders or whispered among diplomats, the message was always the same. It wasn't fear of warships or weapons alone. It was fear of what humanity could become. Humans were different. They didn't conquer like the old empires. They didn't destroy without reason. When they were threatened, they didn't back down. They stood up, and they always came prepared. The tribunal was never the same. The Galactic Tribunal tried to continue with its work. New cases were scheduled, new debates held. But it was never the same. Delegates now hesitated before speaking against Earth. Alliances began to shift. Species that once looked down on humanity began seeking friendship. Trade deals, research partnerships. Others simply stayed away. The tribunal realized something. Strange had happened. Trying to control Earth, they had instead made Earth more powerful than ever. Because now, everyone was watching. They had tried to humiliate humanity on the largest stage. Instead, they had given them a voice that echoed across the stars. The legend of the Veritas, the SS Veritas, disappeared from tribunal space shortly. After the trial ended, it left as silently as it came, no message, no farewell. But its story spread far and wide. Young alien children whispered about it in bedtime stories. Space pilots talked about it in bars. Some said it could cloak itself. Others claimed it could jump across galaxies in seconds. A few believed it was piloted by an AI that had lived through every human war. None of those things were confirmed, but one truth remained. The Veritas became a symbol. It's not just of Earth's strength, but of its determination. a sign that humanity would no longer be ignored or mocked. They were here, and they had earned their place. Humanity's future changed forever back on Earth. Elias Monroe returned as a hero, but he didn't act like one. He gave only one interview. In it, he said, "I didn't win anything. I simply told the truth. The rest of the galaxy did the rest." But everyone knew it wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. Calm, bold, and without fear. After that day, Earth was no longer seen as the newcomer. Human scientists were invited to work on joint projects with alien researchers. Human engineers helped rebuild ancient starports. Human peacekeepers were asked to settle border disputes between old rivals. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, the galaxy began to shift. And at the center of that shift was humanity. The message that endured the most powerful empires, the oldest species, the wisest rulers, they had all witnessed something that day. That true power doesn't always come from weapons or armies. Sometimes it comes from speaking with courage, from standing firm when everyone expects you to fall, from showing the galaxy that even when judged, mocked, and isolated, a person or a planet can still walk out with pride. That's what Elias Monroe did. That's what humanity became. Known for? A galaxy forever changed after the tribunal trial. No one saw humans the same way again. They weren't just explorers, weren't just fighters. We were a rising force of species that dared to look the galaxy in the eye and say, "We will not be silenced." And the galaxy listened. It's not because humans demanded it, but because they earned it. With truth, strength, with silence, and with a single voice that refused to be ignored. Let me know if you'd like a summary. For all 5 parts, or short scripts, to turn this into YouTube video narration, ask ChatGPT.